are you talking about? The plate is like this big. Happy holidays, y'all.
Ho, ho, ho.
Look at Sarah's ridiculous outfit.
Do you want me to stand up? It's a onesie, and it has pockets.
Little monkeys on
I mean, the
them.
colors are a little off when it comes to, you know, the holiday season.
It's kind of wintry, but they have this. So they're sock monkeys.
So it's in the 70s here in Austin. So wintry.
Yeah, and they have Christmas hats on though. It's Christmassy.
And
They're
to top it
sledding.
off,
That's
she
a
has
stretch.
her
Really
turtleneck
stretching
on.
it.
I do have my turtleneck.
Yeah,
on.
she's a big fan of turtlenecks.
Yeah.
I think I look good in turtlenecks. I'm glad they're coming back.
So if you guys are wondering what to get Sarah for Christmas,
Turtlenecks and sock monkeys,
and bags of salt.
and tons of salt. So much salt
What?
all the time.
Rock salt, Epsom salt.
All of it.
Okay.
Bath salts, except for you guys in Florida.
Zing.
Floridians. I have two cousins who live in Florida, so I get you.
Well, it's great to be back. Did you have a good holiday?
You know, I was sick a little bit over the holidays, and
You're still sick now, right?
I'm still a little sick right now. I'm probably gonna go home in my onesie and go straight to bed. And then we had a bunch of Flo hoops action.
Yeah.
We had 3 of the top 5 women's D1 basketball teams on our our
Nice.
platform for Flo hoops. It was wild. We were like watching Final Four matchups.
Did that make you want to pick up a b-ball?
I mean, you know that I played
Yeah.
softball and basketball in college, and I was playing.
You have to tell them the story of the women's league that you were in and who you had to guard.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So I played a little ball in my day. No, I went to D2 school, played basketball and softball. But then I joined a women's league in Austin here, and it was made up of similar players. They played small D1s, D2. And then, there comes Marion Jones out onto the
Yeah.
court. For those of
big
you who
deal.
don't know, because I think we're getting to that point in generations who
Yeah.
Marion Jones is, Olympic caliber sprinter, track athlete, phenomenal athlete. She played a season or 2 in the WNBA.
I didn't know that.
She did. Look it up. She had a falling from grace with a steroids
yeah.
scandal.
Bummer.
But just a phenomenal athlete. And I'm like having to guard Marion Jones, and
Did you post her up?
she posted me up.
She posted you up. Okay. That
You know,
sounds-
we're on
Marion would do that.
like we're on the block with a free throw, and you know, you can move once the ball is released from their hand. And I mean, her fast twitch muscle fibers are just out of control. Like the second she was already in the lane, and I was like, oh, I don't have anybody to box out. Like
Yeah.
it's just
was she
so-
wearing her medals during the game?
It would have helped because it would have slowed her down.
Yeah.
But I just remembered, like, there was a fast break. I had the ball, or she had the ball, and dribbling. I was just like, everything within me to try to keep up with her. While she was dribbling, I'm just like trying to keep, and she just, there she goes, like a
Yeah.
deer down the court. Yeah, she has some serious fast twitch fibers that this body doesn't have.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you lost?
You know, I remember specifically losing. You know what? This is actually a funny story. I actually got in Marion Jones's face because
Ooh,
you know
wow.
how at the end of
Sounds like a salty Sarah thing.
yeah, it sounds like something Salty Sarah would do. You know how the end of a basketball game, if you're down by, I mean, we didn't get crushed, we didn't get killed, but it was obvious that her team was going to win. You know, and you just kind of dribble the ball out of half court. You let the time run out. Well, she went in for a layup with like 3 seconds left, and I let her know that I was like, that wasn't cool. It's just not how you.
What did you do?
And she was
to
like, you
let her
played
know?
at the end of the game, and I was like, the game's over. Like we went back and forth.
wow.
There were no blows,
Man.
but had I had salt, I would have thrown it at her.
Yeah. That would have been a sight.
No, Marion Jones is great. She's a phenomenal athlete. We weren't really good friends. It's not like we hung out. But, you know, that aside, it was really great competing with her. She's super nice. But yeah, those were my Marion Jones basketball
Yeah.
stories.
I feel like you just need to carry around like a bag of salt, and anytime
Yeah.
a situation like that comes up, you just
You just
sprinkle
kind of
some
Bam.
salt.
just Salt Bay.
You hit 'em.
I just Salt Bay Marion
Hit
Jones.
him with the salt.
No, but it did make me miss playing basketball a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
that was my Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. Nothing really to report. Just a lot of sitting in the car, driving from here to there,
Yeah.
visiting, eating.
Sitting, driving,
Yeah,
eating.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All of that. All of that.
Awesome.
But wow. Okay. So in today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Missouri.
This is a big one.
I know. And
is a big
then
one.
we're going to recap some of the biggest stories of 2019 because this is going to be our last show of December. I'm sorry.
It
but,
is.
you know, with this, everyone's schedules are kind of all over the place this month. So this will be our final one. But Missouri, if you guys haven't heard, the NCAA is upholding a postseason ban that includes softball, football, baseball. And just to backtrack, there was an open investigation in 2016. A tutor came forward and accused 12 athletes of academic fraud. There was an investigation, and basically Missouri had complied with all of the NCAA's asks, and they got some really, really harsh news. And it's kind of a surprise when we think back not too long ago about the UNC case. Can you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think immediately when Chez was like, "Hey, we want to talk about this," my first thing, like I went back deep in my memory and I was like, "Didn't UNC have an academic scandal, this decade?" And I went back and looked at some of the details around it, and it was basically the paper classes. There were like 200. What do they call them? Questionable classes offered by a department at UNC that a disproportionate amount of student athletes took. They were basically like independent studies classes, and the scandal was so bad that the school UNC was placed on probation by its accrediting agency, and it was in danger of losing its scholarly regional accreditation, which would have pulled like federal funding from the university and everything. That didn't happen, obviously, but they were found guilty of this. And then when the NCAA did their investigation of this, it was like a decade-long scandal.
Yeah,
They
basically fake classes.
yeah, and they went back and figured out that there were athletes on the 2005 men's basketball championship team who took some of these classes. So it was a decade long. The NCAA was like, "Oh, there's not enough here for us to determine whether they broke any rules." And I was like, with a scandal that large, Mizzou is talking about 12, it's one tutor, 12 athletes, academic, what are they saying? Academic dishonesty?
Yeah, academic fraud.
Academic fraud. Fraud.
Fraud.
That'd be a fun one.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this seems disproportionate.
And then when you think about it,
Yeah.
this affects, I think, over 180 athletes. This affects all the postseason money Missouri could potentially make. It affects recruiting. It affects their scholarship, and it's really unfortunate. And I don't know if like the NCAA is trying to set a precedent for future universities that commit such an offense, but it was classified as a level 1 violation.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me though is this is a chancellor a statement that Mizzou put out, and they feel like these sanctions are not consistent with precedents, and then they said or even common sense, which is but like precedent is what I'm stuck on. Like the precedent set by the UNC case and this one, they're just not even in the same ballpark. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, when you want to talk about academic fraud,
right? Like
fake classes is right up there.
It's crazy to me that they're banning. What'd you say? 180 athletes?
I think it's over 180.
It's going to affect that many.
Yeah, and then they're ineligible for postseason. They're ineligible for the SEC tournament. They lose a percentage of scholarship money. also their recruiting rules are slightly altered. So just a whole slew of punishments for most of the team wasn't even here.
Right, because the investigation started back in 2016, right?
Yeah. So you have most of the team not even present when all of those infractions took place.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make a lot. I'm, let me make this clear. I am against academic fraud. I'm saying the severity of the punishment doesn't fit with precedent, given, the UNC scandal.
I mean, you have to imagine that the NCAA probably faced some kind of scrutiny for just like letting that slide.
Sure, I mean, I get it, but it's just like, what, we're talking about 12 athletes?
Versus 200.
3 years ago,
classes.
and important to know that Mizzou made, the necessary changes and complied with what NCAA put down on them in 2016. They had a whole campaign. I think they called it the Make It Right campaign.
Yeah.
I don't go to Mizzou. I don't know but it certainly seems like they made a commitment to fulfill what the NCAA wanted to see from them, and then they still get slapped with this.
Yeah.
It seems.
And then also, it's not even just like the athletes. This coaching staff wasn't even around.
Yeah,
that's
another
true.
really good point.
They weren't even here. They weren't even at Mizzou.
It just seems
unfair.
It just seems disproportionate.
Yeah.
To the crime, if you will.
And Mizzou spent quite a bit of money trying to appeal it, right? It was like $500,000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they spent over $500,000 on legal fees to appeal this case, and man, it's just a huge letdown for those athletes. And I'm not saying that the university should go unpunished, but like you said, the punishment really doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah, Bobby has a saying. He commented here. He said, "Find the school, limit NCAA funds, but banning a program for postseason play for something that included 12 athletes is absurd."
And then he also mentioned the NCAA has to find a way to punish those involved and not those that come after them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Bobby.
Wow, laying it on
I like
us.
where your head's at.
Come join us.
I just, I'd love to hear somebody else's side on this. If somebody disagrees with us, or they're like, I think this, I'd like to hear the other side, because I don't see. I'm just seeing this one way.
Yeah.
And I just kind of see it as kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, just unfortunate, and yeah. Michelle Carter asks, I may be wrong, but wasn't it a student tutor that was involved? Yeah, it was a tutor that came forward with these accusations of academic fraud. So that's kind of what initiated the whole investigation. And
One tutor, 12 athletes.
180 players and countless staff that are affected. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and UNC was 200 questionable classes, along with unauthorized grade changes and faculty signatures, and a disproportionate number.
Do you think that has
independent
anything to
study.
do with how good they are at basketball?
That's a good question.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend that these schools recruit athletes who do not meet academic standards that otherwise,
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not going to say anything specifically about you. I have no idea, but I'm just going to blanket statement. I think there are athletes who get into these schools who would not otherwise get into these schools given their academic prowess
Yeah.
and achievements.
Totally.
That's what I'm going to say with that. I don't know if it specifically affects their basketball team. I don't know if it affects their softball team. I don't know if it affects their rowing team. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it affects, but I'm positive. And I'm certain that Mizzou is not the only university that has academic fraud happening either.
I'm sure it happens every year. We just don't always hear about it.
Right. But I don't know if it's why they're good at basketball. I don't feel like I can say that.
Well,
I mean, some of it is known that members of their 2005 championship year were in those classes, those paper classes, but I don't feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit of a leap, but
Totally.
yeah, I have a feeling some athletes are at schools where they would not have else
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. Or things went bad and they went somewhere else.
Yeah, or that.
Victoria came up with a good comment. Who stands to gain from Mizzou's loss? Hashtag
All the
conspiracy
other
theories.
SEC programs.
Hashtag conspiracy theories.
Hashtag conspiracy theories.
Let's talk conspiracy. No, we're not gonna go there.
I mean, I think the other SEC programs
Yeah.
definitely benefit from this.
I mean, that's a
Obviously.
fair. Is there something larger going on between the Mizzou and the NCAA that something
We
like this
don't
would
know.
happen?
Conspiracy theories.
I don't know.
Hashtag.
Let's have a sideshow called conspiracy theories.
That would be awesome.
Totally unfounded.
That would be awesome. Fake news.
Fake news. Yeah, totally. All right, let's move on. So obviously, as part of the last show of 2019, we're gonna recap some of the biggest stories, and I really feel like towards the end of 2018, like leading into 2019, it was like the story of transfers.
Yeah, I think the amount of times we talked about transfers on the show probably validates that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, 10 players left Oregon.
That to me is,
I was like, holy crap.
is one
10.
of the biggest stories of the year for me, I think, because that coaching change, Oregon's like a perennial, like a powerhouse in
Yeah.
the Pac-12, and then you just have this mass exodus of players
Yeah.
with Mike White leaving, which completely shook up the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's a big, and that's one of the major
And the
conferences.
Big 12.
Yeah, and the Big 12. The sequential, his leaving Oregon and then going to Texas. That's a chain reaction there. It's a big story.
Good old
Big
coaching
story.
carousel.
What's that?
Yeah.
Good
The
old
coaching-
coaching carousel.
Oh,
Just-
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you could make that point. The athlete transfers and then the coaching carousels.
Yeah, totally.
Big time stories.
And we haven't talked about him a lot, but Louisiana Lafayette is like the transfer mecca, I feel like. I mean, think Megan Kleist,
Run it down for
Mia
us. Run it down for us.
Camuso, Gianna Torres, Raina O'Neal, Alyssa Dalton, Callie Martin, Sarah Hudek.
Keep
and then,
going.
And then the year before,
Right.
there were a couple other A&M transfers. It's just insane. And I think this year they're going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think combining the Oregon transfers with the Missouri transfers, they're gonna be all right.
Yeah, they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and then Texas just making the complete 180. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Mike White and staff.
Yeah.
huge part of that.
I mean, big news. Connie started that program.
Yeah.
Right. She was the only coach in that program's history. So that in and of itself, her leaving was a big story. And then Mike White coming in and immediately kind of changing that team.
Well, those Oregon transfers certainly help.
Well, yeah,
With Miranda Ellis, Shannon Rhodes.
they're kind of a big deal.
Yeah, Mary Ikopo, Lauren Burke, and then over the summer, Colleen Sullivan, which I thought was a great pick. I mean, she transferred from UCLA fresh out of winning a national championship.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's every month now we're hearing more about Texas picking up some big recruits. So I think they're going to shake things up.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a huge story of the year.
And then we got Oregon. Obviously, with all those players leaving, they had to pick up more transfers, and Jordan Dale was like a huge surprise for that program. We weren't sure how they were going to start, and they started off really strong, and then kind of started fizzling out.
Yeah.
Just
I think you'll see Oregon rise to the top of the Pac-12 again. I don't know that it'll be immediate, but I think they're going to rebuild that program.
yeah, totally. The other story is obviously investigations and scandals.
So many scandals.
Right? I mean,
So many scandals.
we don't have any updates right now on like the Ole Miss suspension. Nebraska head coach Rhonda Revelle was under investigation, and then like before that, obviously Aaron Earlywine, and then Coach Lateef. And then there's all these other stories that we haven't even heard of, like the UTEP coaching change was a bit abrupt, and still don't know all of the ins and outs of that. But
I feel like every quarter this year we had a scandal. That kind of was just like the tentpole scandal for the quarter. Because Lateef was way back at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. And then, we had...
I feel like that was like the first one that kind of kicked off, like, okay, now this
actually,
coach is under
Auburn last year kind of kicked everything off.
That's like
and then
a
it just,
total duh.
And then it just kind of... But for this year, like Lateef was at the beginning of the year, and then it just kept... Yeah, so many scandals. So much salt.
Yeah, it makes
so much tea. We spilled so much tea.
It makes me sad.
It does. Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not the stuff that we want to talk about. But it's
Lamar too.
Yeah,
that was another weird handling of that coaching change. And then obviously USA making their roster announcement after they qualified.
Huge news.
Yeah.
When was the last time? What year? 2012? No, 2008.
2008, yeah.
2008. So it's been a decade since we had an Olympic roster.
Yeah, wild. Go Eagles.
What a time to be alive.
And then in just sadder news, we lost Jerry Ann Glasgow this year, and Mark Campbell, along with some other softball players or former alumni. So that was super sad. And in other sad news, USSSA Pride left the NPF.
And yeah, so they left, and then there's a California team now.
Yeah, Kirk Walker's the new coach. The Canadian Wild is back in the NPF for the 2020 season.
That's a big. That was a big story. Like USSSA has been there. They weren't one of the founding members, but
they're like the Yankees. What if the Yankees left the MLB?
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
I hate to make that a comparison, but the pinstripes remind me of the Yankees.
No, and I think it's fair to say that the U-Trip is like the Yankees. That's a fair comparison,
right?
In terms of their dominance and their legacy.
And who they like pick up.
In terms of their legacy, that was a big story. That was a big deal.
And then Arkansas with Danielle Gibson hitting for the home run cycle, which was like bananas.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was wild.
Like just in case you missed that, it wasn't the cycle; it was the home run cycle. Big deal.
I can't do that.
I can't, and I don't remember any time. Has anybody else ever done that
in softball?
Yeah,
I don't know. If you know somebody,
let us know.
Please feel free to comment because we don't know.
And what big stories? What were your favorite big stories? Right? Like what are we missing, folks?
Yeah.
Those were some of the biggest ones I think that and that we covered on the show too.
Yeah. I just felt like it was like transfers, scandals. But it's crazy how big of an impact these transfers have made. I saw, let's see, Kelly Elvington was saying Sam Shaw, hands down, biggest transfer last year. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
The Pokes went to the World Series. Insane. And then we saw Minnesota in the World Series. I thought regionals and super regionals was freaking bananas. Bananas.
It was. It was. It was an exciting year.
Yeah. And interesting.
Interesting and exciting. I'm always interested and excited. And salty.
Yeah, totally. But those were some of the biggest ones. And moving on, so tomorrow morning we do this poll every year, and Allie can talk a little bit about it. But we're gonna do best dressed for college and club. So this will be your time to make your votes. Last year, Oklahoma State had the most votes for best dressed for college, and then the Texas Bombers
for club.
And the year before, it was Florida and the South Dakota Renegades. So it could be anyone's game. Should we open this up for D2 too? I think we should.
Yeah, we should.
Good.
Let's do it.
This is a critical vote. This is important. Best dressed.
We should start sending out plaques for this.
We
I
should.
feel
Honestly,
like.
that'd be really cool.
Or get him some Flow Sports swag. Can we make that
All the
happen?
swag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll work on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
we'll get
do
some cool
this.
stuff.
Let's make it happen.
I just remember, did LSU win one year? Because
Yeah, they did. I think they won our first.
they celebrated hard.
They
Like there was a
did.
video or a photo,
Yeah.
something in the locker room. Like they were really proud.
No,
Yeah.
of being
Oklahoma State,
best
they were
dressed.
making graphics. Like, they
Well,
were super
I think
pumped, too.
LSU won in 2016. I think.
Yeah, there's like a running list.
Yeah, but they're always in the top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah,
in the top
that's
3.
true.
Oregon's been up there, but hasn't quite won. So I don't know.
And some people like the classic look of Arizona.
I love that classic.
So
one.
it's an important one.
UCLA with the pinstripes this year.
Yeah.
Looked pretty slick. So cast your votes tomorrow. It's going up. We're going to run that for about a week or so.
Yeah, about a week or so.
Okay.
And for the winning teams, we are going to send you guys something, a little something.
Oh, a little something, something.
Yeah. So I think it's time. You should
I
be
think-
rewarded.
Yes,
Look good, play good.
that's right.
All right, y'all. Well, that is it for Here's the Deal for the rest of 2019. And
It's been a wild ride, guys.
and you better be back in January because we're going to have all the tea, all the
All the
salt.
tea.
And,
Maybe salt in the tea.
and we're just going to be so freaking pumped for season to start.
Oh, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
If you thought 2019 was
Yeah.
wild,
We're going to have all the conspiracy theories in January.
rage rooms.
Yeah. I think that's how we should open the show.
I think we should.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I think that's exactly how we should.
Rage rooms for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us all year. We really appreciate you guys and hope you have a good holiday.
Happy holidays, guys. Stay salty.